Welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel every day leading up to Halloween and discuss it. Today we are talking about 1985's The Return of the Living Dead, which was directed by Dan O'Bannon. I'm your co-host, Alec.
I'm Eric, and with us again is Joe Testa. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. Good to hear your voice, Eric, and congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I know. Yeah, this is the first time you guys have really talked, in a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and glad to be back, and glad to hear that voice.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, we text every once in a while, the three of us, but yeah, I love having us all together, and obviously Joe and I have been just, going over so many movies the past few months, but it's good to have us all together. I love this.
Yeah, it's been a while. A while. I don't even know the last time.
But I really couldn't think of a more fun movie than this one. I mean, I just need to know right off the bat. Joe, I know you've seen this a million times, but Eric, is this your first time?
Yes, this is my first time seeing this one.
Okay, I feel like this is a Eric movie, and I feel like if you saw this in, middle school, this would have, defined your life, dude.
I would have had this on in the background for, months, just as I, do my homework and stuff.
Okay, so I was right. I really, the first time I ever saw this movie, I was like, damn, I feel like Eric would love this.
Yeah, is this the first funny zombie movie?
Joe?
That was, I think it is.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think this is the first funny zombie movie, maybe the first fast-moving zombie movie, the first zombie movie where they're eating brains. I feel like this is the first for several things that maybe this movie doesn't get enough credit for,
Yeah, you're right. I knew the brains thing. This is the first time they mentioned it, but I never thought about comedic. Yeah, I doubt it. Maybe there's some B movie out there, but who knows?
Think about how many other movies derived from being a comedy. With like Zombieland, this is what the first one that comes to mind, and
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, geez, yeah, of course.
Oh my god, yeah, no, seriously. Now, Joe, what is your relationship with this franchise? All of it.
Oh man, this is another one where I don't really remember life before it,
Yeah.
And it's one that me and my friends just revisited constantly. And I know I must have been pretty young when I first saw it, because I remember when that opening graphic comes up and it says based on a true story. I found that quite unnerving as a kid.
Really?
Oh yeah. And again, this was one of those VHS covers that had that just amazing poster art, the one I'm talking about, with the three punk rock zombies. I just love that poster to this day. So yeah, this is a special one for me.
Yeah, the poster is so iconic, and it always just felt like a comedy to me even before I saw it. Just looking at that poster, I'm like, this doesn't look scary, it just looks fun and cool, But a quick question I kind of had just for both of you guys. It seems to me like this movie is basically, it takes place in, well, no, I guess it would just be the regular world or whatever, but they're saying that they're acknowledging Night of the Living Dead as if it's a real thing. But didn't Dan O'Bannon have something to do with Night of the Living Dead, or I think I'm confusing this?
Yeah, I think you're confusing him with John Russo.
Okay.
And I believe I might have mentioned him way back in my very first Wheel of Horror appearance. We talked about Night of the Living Dead. And John Russo was the co-writer of that movie with George Romero. And, they both kind of went their separate ways, and both, tried to capitalize on the success of that movie, which, nobody made out too well with that movie because of the copyright issue that I went into way back when.
Right.
So, Romero went off and did Dawn of the Dead, and John Russo wrote a book and a script called Return of the Living Dead, which, from what I understand, has almost nothing to do with this movie. From what I understand, producers really just wanted that title. They bought him out and hired Dan O'Bannon to write a script called Return of the Living Dead.
Huh. Okay, so John Russo has obviously some connection to the original Night of the Living Dead, but yeah, because I just thought that was cool how they acknowledge that movie, and they're kind of using plot points from that film to apply to this, kind of like Shaun of the Dead too. But yeah, I just love that.
I was going to say it feels very ahead of its time. It's like it's almost this meta kind of thing where characters in this movie are aware of zombie movies and the conventions and the rules of zombie movies.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know, that immediately stood out to me. Another thing that really stood out to me, and Eric, I want to see if you notice this. What does the score remind you of, Eric?
Honestly, I was gonna say Top Gun.
Me
A
too.
little bit.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
With the dong,
Yes,
the bell.
exactly, dude. And it's funny because this movie came out before Top Gun, but that like dong, like that like Taco Bell, like dong, like,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. I'm so glad you thought that too, dude.
I did think that. Yeah. It's funny. I actually had another movie I was listening to the soundtrack for, was Halloween 3. That sounds so much like the Terminator if you were to listen to that theme too. So that's so funny that you mentioned that. Like, what else does it remind you of?
Yeah.
Halloween 3, give that soundtrack a listen again. It's like, oh man, this is the Terminator.
It is, Eric, very Terminator. And had I not just seen, Top Gun Maverick relatively recently, I probably wouldn't even know what you guys are talking about. But now that you say that, yeah, absolutely, I hear it.
Dude, it's all I hear. And it's such like a cool opening shot or whatever. Like when that starts, it's just like the gas is coming out and the people start getting infected. So I just love the way that looks.
That was my favorite part of the movie, when he's just like, it's like, don't worry, this was made by the Army Corps engineers. He like gives like a little like slap on the like hood of a car kind of thing, and it just like pops open. He's like, oh shit.
I was going to say, something I love about this movie is it doesn't really seem to have too much of like George Romero's pretentiousness, and I mean that in the best possible way. You guys know I love George Romero, but it doesn't really have his, social commentary. This movie is more just, a good time, a party. But now that you mention it, I do feel like there are digs at like the government and the military, like when he says, "Oh, this is made by the U.S. government."
One slap and it just pops over. Yeah, the army probably did not like that scene.
Yeah, and actually, even the ending, the very dark ending of this movie, which I'm sure we'll get to, it has this kind of cynical feel that the army doesn't give a shit about these people; they're all expendable.
Well, now that you say that, Joe, actually, I'm thinking about it too. The second we meet the colonel or whatever, right when he goes into his house, he's like kind of a dick to his wife, just starts drinking, like doesn't seem to be like a good guy. They don't make him seem like yeah. So you're right. I think they are kind of taking a dig at the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the kicker too with that whole, like, they lost the shipment. This is like FedEx. Like, what is this? Like the USPS. like how do you lose like that most important probably thing? Which if it got out, you'd have to like freaking, we'll talk about the ending. But like, how do you let that happen?
Yeah, these things should be more precious than like nuclear bombs.
Right.
Yeah,
but there's just a couple dozen of them out there somewhere or whatever.
Yeah, but also, like, why didn't they return it when they got it? Like, why did they keep it? Did they ever answer that? Like, oh, it's like a secret stash of cool shit.
No, yeah, I feel like it's just one of those things. They're like, put them in the basement. We'll get around to it. And then like 20 years passed. I could relate to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's an interesting movie, though, because it has such like a massive juxtaposition between characters. Like, we're introduced to kind of these like uptight, older business kind of guys, and then we also get these punk rock, just don't give a shit about anything kind of people. And to have them mix, I really liked that. I loved the characters in this, especially Clu Gulager, or whatever, however you say his name. Dude, I love him so much. It's so sad he just died. I hope I look like him when I'm in my 50s.
Yeah, we just talked about Clue in our Nightmare on Elm Street 2 podcast.
Right.
He's awesome. I love him. He's hilarious. And I mean, I love this cast in general. And I feel like the punk music and the costuming, it gives this movie so much like character and attitude, and it sets it apart from Romero. I almost feel like Clue and Frank, those guys would be the Romero cast, if this was a Romero movie. But all of Freddie and his friends, like, they just give this movie such a freshness, and it keeps it from feeling tired or like a Romero ripoff.
Mm-hmm. And even compared to like Friday the 13th, where they're all just kind of like blah, generic teens or whatever, this one, like, Jesus, man, like, these people all look so crazy. They've all got crazy trash, suicide, and then you get like one of the most graphic nude dances I've like ever seen in a movie, especially in the 80s, and for no reason at all. Like,
and in the first 30 minutes, which is like, whoa, okay. I was not expecting that. I was just like, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's going on? This wasn't. Why is this happening?
Well, I wanted to ask you guys about that, because that scene, which I'm very fond of. It's always confused me, though. And I never got an answer for my, questions until I watched a very in-depth documentary about this movie called More Brains. And I've watched this documentary several times. So I was never actually sure if she was naked below the waist because she's wearing these chaps and something just always looked kind of off to me. And I got the whole scoop if you want to hear it.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so they did have her do this dance in the nude, and a producer was like, "Look, we can't have pubic hair in this movie. It's gonna cause a whole big issue with ratings." And so, logically, they just had her shave everything, and they shot it again. And the same producer was like, "That's even worse." Yeah. So then they shot it again, but this time they had her wear some kind of appliance that essentially just makes her look like a Barbie doll. So that's what we're actually seeing. And it always just kind of looked a little odd to me, I'll say.
So you're saying this movie actually inspired people shaving their pubic hairs probably in porn? I mean, maybe it could have.
They did say in the documentary, that was very, very rare at the time. So this might have been another thing that this movie was, kind of a trendsetter.
Jeez,
full frontal without really going full frontal is like kind of what they did. And I wonder if they invented that too, which that's very impressive as well. I mean,
yeah, no, seriously. I mean, I think so I had to watch this movie I guess they're releasing a new Scream Factory or Shout Factory or whatever 4K release of this within the next year. So I had to, at my job, I had to watch it at work, and I had to watch all of the commentary, all of these behind-the-scenes features that you're talking about, Joe, the More Brains documentary. I've seen, there's multiple commentary tracks. I've seen them all. So if there's something wrong with it, it actually is my fault. It really is. But I remember being at work and having to watch this scene just multiple times and, looking behind me being like, people probably think I'm like a fucking creeper, dude, watching this scene over and over and over again.
Trash is taking off her clothes again. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I get the light. That's what they say. It's like, what the?
Yeah, get the flares or whatever.
And then you got that one guy, Suicide, who's like the biggest one. And he's like, the other girl's like, the trash is like coming onto him. And he's like, what? This is a graveyard. Have some respect.
Yeah.
He's like, he definitely has ED, dude. Like, it's like...
Everybody was so, weird, dude. Yeah, she's getting naked. She's like, have you ever thought about dying? And that guy's like, no.
And it should be said that this is Linnea Quigley, something of a scream queen. And, if you grew up watching horror movies in the 80s, you probably saw her boobs plenty. She was in Silent Night, Deadly Night. She was in Night of the Demons. And actually, if you've ever seen Nightmare on Elm Street 4, she has kind of a blink and you miss it moment. She is a soul coming out of Freddy's chest at the very end when he dies, and even in that you can see her boobs.
It was funny in the documentary. They said that one of the reasons she got the part in this is because of being naked in Silent Night, Deadly Night. The casting director knew she was comfortable with it, so they're like, "Well, just put her in it then." It's like, that's crazy. You can just get by just because of that. I love it.
There's a bunch of familiar faces in here. If you know the Friday the 13th movies, we just covered Jason Lives not long ago, and Tom Matthews, who played Tommy Jarvis, he's here, and Miguel Nunez, who is in Friday 5, which we haven't covered yet.
Yeah, dude, he's the guy who dies on the toilet, right? With his girlfriend. Yeah.
Yep.
I know, dude. We'll definitely have to do that one. Another interesting thing about that guy, Miguel Nunez, apparently he was homeless when they were filming this, dude. He was just living in his car or whatever, and everybody thought he was joking, but he's like, "No, I really do." And I mean, obviously his life's improved since then, but he was genuinely homeless when he got this.
Good for him.
I know. That's just so interesting to me. Yeah, I learned quite a bit listening to the commentary tracks. And one thing I want to know what you heard about this, Joe, but I heard Dan O'Bannon was an asshole on set to everybody. This is the director, Eric.
Yeah. And interesting enough, this movie was originally supposed to be directed by Tobe Hooper.
Yes.
And who knows what that would have looked like. But Dan O'Bannon was mostly known as a writer. He co-wrote Alien and Total Recall. I mean, he has a pretty impressive resume.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't direct too many movies. And yes, I've heard he was not the easiest guy to work for. The girl who plays Tina in this movie, Freddie's girlfriend, had a particularly interesting story about how Dan invited